Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video. Today I have with me David Reichelt. He is the inventor of the global hit game Color Switch. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, sir.
Now,
Alex.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Now, I know you have a fascinating history, not only as a colorblind Iraq War veteran, but also as a veteran of game making with 40 games under your belt before you invented the breakthrough title Color Switch. So, for those who don't know your story, can you please tell us a bit more about it and some of your other games before Color Switch?
Okay, so and start from the military to those 40 games?
Sure, yeah, please.
Okay, yeah, I was in the Army from 2003 to 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got out from active duty in 2006. And yeah, I actually was a medic because I scored really high on the military test, but I failed the colorblind test.
Right.
And all the jobs were excluded from me except for a few, and I ended up picking being a medic for the military.
Which
and
is
it was
also
because
very
of my
noble.
colorblindness. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was interesting how it took me in this specific direction with that. But yeah, you know, I never had any issues with my colorblindness when I was working that job. But it was because of the military that I got the confidence to go out and try more things in life, you know, because I would always think, well, you know, I was able to treat patients in a combat zone, so I think I could handle doing this or doing that.
Sure.
And I just kept on trying a lot of different things, and eventually I was studying theater at Cal State Northridge, and that's another thing I got inspired to do from the military because I did an impression of my drill sergeant for 400 soldiers, and everyone was laughing and having a good time, and my drill sergeant was crying because he was laughing so hard.
At least he didn't make you do 400 push-ups or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was a gamble, you know, but I paid off, fortunately. Yeah. But so from that experience, I was interested in theater because I never felt the rush of applause being on stage before that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so, you know, years later, I got involved with the theater, and I met a friend there, and through her, I met another friend who was making games at the time, or he was trying to, and then I saw what he was doing, and I asked about it, and it looked like something I would want to do.
Sure.
And so he and I teamed up, and I started making games back in 2013 in July. And yeah, from that point until, you know, prior to Color Switch coming out in December last year, I made about 40 games. And those consisted of, I'm trying to remember now. Well, my first game ever was called Baby Three Horns Great Escape. And that's still on the App Store. It's kind of like a doodle jump type game.
Sure.
What else? I made a lot of games that were kind of just copies of other games. Like there was a popular cookie clicker game, and so I made one with a caveman theme.
Right. And
I put most of these on the Nook, but the Nook App Store actually just became extinct like a month ago. So all my apps that were on there are gone to the echoes of time.
Yeah.
But they're still on my computer. I have all the projects and whatnot.
I mean, you could always re-upload them to the Android store if you wanted to, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I could upload them. There'd be no point because none of them are very good. You know, they're just. It was just. I think I made some dentist games for kids where the kids take these tools and clean patients' teeth. I had Wizard of Oz.
I've seen.
What's that?
I've seen similar games where the teeth are being taken out. So you were saying you were copying various things, probably to learn, I guess, you know.
Right. It was. I'm trying to remember. I think it was just. Kids would. There were just a lot of tools. I don't know if it was a learning game. It was just they were the dentist and they would clean his teeth, and I had like a Wizard of Oz theme, Peter Pan theme, and put them on the App Store. And you know, really, I just kind of saw what was doing well in the App Store and tried to mimic that. You know, and none of those apps ever did any good. Until I got to Color Switch, and then that one took off. But yeah, I had about 40 of those, plus many more projects that I never published. I must have another 50 to 100 game prototypes that I started building, but then I just abandoned for whatever reason. Sure. But yeah, it was a lot of work before I got to the current one.
But it must be fair to say that the Color Switch game was the true original game, the original idea, as opposed to being a copy of somebody else's, and that was probably part of the key as to its success.
Yeah, I learned something from someone named Trey Smith. He's the founder of BuildBox, the software I use to create Color Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always say, model and improve. Model what's been done, but improve upon it.
Sure.
And that's just about any game that you can think of on the App Store. It does. Angry Birds is a model improve upon another game called Crush the Castle.
Yeah, I remember
Candy
that.
Crush was a model improve on another game. I can't think of the title.
Sure.
But even Tomb, was it I can't think of the name, but a lot of, basically in every industry works like that. Music works like that. Musicians look to the past for ideas and how, to get inspired and improve upon what's been done. And so with Color Switch, I just looked at all these sources. I looked at games. I looked at things that weren't games,
Sure.
and I just basically looked at all these different sources and I tore them all apart, and I started reconfiguring elements from different things until they combined into a unique idea that was unique to me. That's been cloned many times.
Yeah.
I think we have over 100 clones on the App Store.
Incredible.
But prior to December 6th, the idea didn't exist.
Yeah.
The game type existed, where you tap the screen and a character goes up. There's 1,000 of those.
Yeah.
But the specific model and improvement I thought of didn't exist. And it just came organically from all these different sources that I was inspired by. And just, I used the concept called conceptual blending, which is the idea of taking different concepts and blending them together to create a new concept.
Right.
And so that was how I thought of Color Switch. I used conceptual blending,
And
where I used many concepts and blended them together to come up with that idea.
sure. And where did you learn about conceptual blending? Was it something that you read on the internet, or something you learned in the military? Because that's a very cool concept.
Well, it's a concept that a lot of the big minds in history used. Einstein, Da Vinci, a lot of these people used conceptual blending when they thought of their ideas and their inventions. And where I learned from it was, I learned from a book called Thinker Toys that I had found back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And Thinker Toys is basically a book filled with the creative thinking techniques, and they're all based on the idea of conceptual blending, taking ideas and blending them together to make new ideas. And it has all these different techniques to do that. And then the same author, Michael Pachalko, he has another book called Creative Thinkering. And that book really focuses on the idea of conceptual blending, and gives you more details on it and what it is. And he really goes over how that's the most important part of creativity, is the idea of being aware of conceptual blending. Because if you're aware of it and it's something you work on a daily basis, you can think of any idea you want. There are no limits to your creativity, and everyone has the same ability. There's a genius mindset locked inside of everyone's brain that you can unlock if you work on it.
Yeah.
And by using techniques like that, and also always learning different from different disciplines and applying them to what you do, you can always expand your thinking. And when you improve your thinking, that's when you improve your results. If I didn't work on improving my thinking, I wouldn't have improved my results with games and thought of Color Switch. I would have just kept making the games I was making, which were either clones of other games or just bad copies of other games, or just unoriginal ideas. But the whole time I was making those, I was working on conceptual blending. Sure. And once I kind of got decent at the techniques, then that's when I started generating better ideas. And Color Switch was the one idea one day where I thought I just had a really good feeling about it, and I went ahead with that one.
Yeah. I mean, I've read an article recently somewhere on the web talking about how there's no really new ideas under the sun. Everything is a remix of everything else. And the other comment I wanted to make was that, what you were doing before in copying other people, now other people are doing to you. And they're at that earlier stage that you were at, and they're waiting for their big breakthrough too.
Right. And the key is not to stay at that stage, because even Radiohead, which is one of the biggest bands in the world, they talked about how they would actually literally copy other people's songs and play them when they first got together.
Sure.
And it's really just a way of, I think it's fine for learning. You copy, tear apart what's been done that's been done well,
sure,
and then learn from that. But the key point is, don't stay in that phase, the learning phase. There's some developers out there who just, that's their whole career. They just make copies of other games. And that's not what you want to do. So, when people copy my game, I don't get mad because I understand, there are some people who are in that phase, but then there are other people who just do it. That's their business.
Yeah.
So, it happens in just about every industry. But the key is, do that for learning in the beginning, but don't do that for your career, because everyone, whether a consumer knows about the app world, how it works internally or not, they do have a sense if something's a copy of something, and they'll leave comments, oh, this is just a copy of this, that's just a copy of that. They realize this. So you'll get limited results when you just copy people. You'll get much bigger results when you think of your own ideas that are inspired by many other ideas that have been done already.
Sure. I mean, there are very few cover bands musically that are famous. It's always
exactly.
I mean, with ABBA, there's Bjorn Again, for example, but that's probably about it.
Right. I forget where I read this quote, but the quote is, "The hard way is the easy way." So the easy way is to just clone games in this example. The hard way is to actually get really good game design skills and creative thinking skills down. But that ends up being the easy way, because then you have a skill set that no one can copy.
Yeah.
They can only copy something you put out, but they can't copy your mindset.
That's it.
And so the mindset that I have that got me the idea of Color Switch, I can repeat that because I've developed that thinking over the last couple years. And so it's something that I know I can repeat for other things, and not just apps. I mean, other things, other industries and whatnot, because I think thinking's a Swiss Army knife. You can use it for whatever you need to use it for.
Sure. I mean, my next question, you more or less answered it, but I want to say it anyway, because you must have obviously heard or been told before about how Rovio went through a bit of a similar process in that they had like 50 titles before they hit upon the 51st, which was Angry Birds. And, it reminds me of people like Colonel Sanders with KFC, or Abraham Lincoln,
sure.
who lost every election until he became president, or Thomas Edison, who did 10,000 attempts at the light globe. And, all of them had incredible failures before attaining success. And I guess what you've told us is what's kept you going and why you never sort of quit.
Right. And it's, I think I always tell people I'm not the smartest person at what I do. I'm not the most skilled person at what I do by any means. But if I'm the most stubborn person, if that smarter person or that more skilled person quits before me, then I'm still going to get to the goal. So, a lot of people quit, especially when you're doing something of an entrepreneurial endeavor. A lot of people will quit because you don't get the benefits for a while. If you get them at any time that's relatively not too long. But a lot of people, they want things the easy way, or they don't want it that hard. They don't want to have to feel the feeling of failing too much. And in this industry, I mean, I failed hundreds, if not thousands of times before I got to the Color Switch idea. And I spent maybe $15,000 or more on different templates for games, software. There were some people I paid to make games or apps for me, and they never made them, but I never got my money back. And I made all these mistakes along the way, and each one of those was a learning experience. And I wouldn't have gotten to where I am without each one of those that I learned from. So I think, I think failure it's actually it's your friend. To fail is something necessary to succeed. And I think Michael Jordan's someone who said, "I failed over and over, and that's the only reason I succeeded."
Yeah.
And it's just learning. I think too many times in school, failure is thought of as a bad thing. Oh, you got a D on that test. You got a F, and then we feel horrible when we fail, and we don't want to fail anymore.
Sure.
But that does a great disservice to people, because if you keep yourself from failing and you keep yourself in a safe place, you'll never grow as a person the way you would like to in these big ways. And so embracing the idea of failing and just being stubborn about it, and knowing that I'm going to fail, but I'm going to learn from that failure, and I'm going to fail again and learn again, and just keep learning and keep going, and just don't quit, and just be stubborn about it. And that's how you get to success. When this is something I learned from other people like Michael Jordan or other people who have had successes. They'll say the same thing. And so I think that's really the key to all that is embrace failure, because it's just ends to a means. It's a sign that you're headed somewhere, and it's a sign that you're on your way to a success. but you don't know how many failures lie ahead between you and that success. You could be failing for a week or a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. But again, the point is fail until you get there. We don't know how long it'll take for any one of us. But the more you improve your thinking and improve your results, then the quicker you'll get there as well. So you got to be stubborn, and you always have to improve your thinking by learning from that failure and also feeding your brain, different information that you can process and use in different ways.
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of sayings. One is that for a lot of people, instant gratification isn't instant enough, and because of that, they never step out of their comfort zone, which is the only place you're going to grow, which is just
right.
What you were saying. So, excuse me. You've already covered this, and so just maybe if you could just answer it in brief, but can you just describe, the moment of epiphany when you thought, hey, that's a really good idea for Color Switch? I know you've already covered it, but I mean, just if there's any extra little bit of detail, because it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, I think back on that sometimes. I'm like, what was it exactly that gave me that idea? There were a couple of things I know were inspirations. So when I to get different ideas, you have to look at things in a different way. You can't look at something as it is. So, for example, if I look at a table as a table,
yep,
I'll never think of a new idea. But if I look at a table and I look at a candle and I combine those using conceptual blending, well, now let's say I had an acrylic table that's clear. You can see through it, and it's filled with LED lights everywhere. And I touch the table in a certain spot, and the whole table lights up because of the LED technology. Mm-hmm. What if I swiped left or right and it got brighter, and I swiped the other way and it got dimmer? Now the table is a light, and I could use it for lighting the room, or if I'm working on a paper, or if I'm eating, or whatever it is. But I wouldn't have thought of this idea of that table if I didn't use conceptual blending. So when I was thinking of Color Switch, I was using conceptual blending, and I was using Thinker Toys techniques. And in fact, the two techniques I was using are called slice and dice and scamper. Slice and dice breaks up any concept into all of its attributes. For example, cup. If I were to slice and dice that, I would break it up into material, size, weight, product. I would say things like it fits in the hand, it's for drinking, it's for holding liquid, all sorts of stuff. You could have 100 different attributes of what that is. And then I use Scamper, which is an acronym, and each letter is a different way to manipulate any one of those attributes. That's how I start listing ideas. And so I use both those together to when I was making generating game ideas. So Color Switch, I look at things that aren't games as well. So when I log into Gmail, there's a loading wheel. Actually, it's a loading ball that changes colors.
I see it myself
as you're loading.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I always thought, man, that'd be interesting to have that as a game, a color changing ball. So I had that on my paper. And then another thing I had was there was this one game where there's a color wheel like in my game, and there's a dial. And as the dial goes around like a clock, it changes colors, and you have to tap the dial when it's over the correct color of the color wheel.
Right.
But when you tap it, it goes counterclockwise, and now it's another color. And each time you tap it, the dial color has to match up with the color over the certain part. Sure. So I looked at that game, and there were many variations of that. And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea, but the gameplay is boring. So I slice and dice that. And then I think there were a couple other things I was looking at. There was a game called Flight, which a friend of mine, who I think he made that with Billbox, made. And I was looking at that game, and I thought, how could I model and improve this game? And it was basically the same gameplay where you tap the screen and a ball goes up the screen. But, I basically just was looking at it. I thought, well, what if if color and shape are the main themes of my game, how could I add those in here? And I started thinking, well, if I had a color wheel, what if I had to go through a specific color? And then I thought of, well, what if the ball also had to be that same, the same color? And then I probably did something like I looked at the Gmail color changing ball, and then I probably thought, well, what if the ball was always changing color? And it was basically just kind of, by slicing and dicing all these things. And that loading icon, which isn't even a game, but I looked at it as something other than what it was, and I applied it. I conceptually blended it with game elements, and I thought of that game. But looking at all these elements, slicing and dicing and scampering, I just started generating. I had like 200 ideas that I generated as I was sketching things, And then it was basically just asking those questions and putting things together, something of that organic process that really, the idea just popped in my head at some point. I remember thinking about it. I thought, well, that's a really interesting idea that the ball goes through, but then it changes color again, and I have to go through a new color. And then I think I spent 20 minutes making the graphics, and then once I had those made, which was just 3 different graphics, and then I put it into BuildBox, and I had a demo ready in about 10 minutes, and I was playing it, and I just thought, wow, this is really interesting, and I knew I was on to something. But yeah, it was really just this process of slicing and dicing, which just gives you all these perspectives that were packed in that concept that you couldn't see. If you just look at a cup like everyone else, again, you're just going to see a cup. You don't see the size, the weight, the shape, all these things it is. But when you slice and dice, it breaks out all those perspectives. And like anything in life, the more perspectives you have to draw from, the more educated of a thought process you have for what you're working on.
Sure. I mean,
so
go on. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, it was basically just that process of conceptually blending and taking all these different elements from all these different sources and getting a new idea inspired by all of that.
Yeah, it's like when you have a goal, you're supposed to chunk it down into smaller parts, and it's like lateral thinking. I mean, all that together in a far more sophisticated way. It's sort of all of that on steroids, and you have what you're talking about, and these books, which I think people really should read, and this build box that sounds like a great little game building tool as well.
Yeah, BuildBox doesn't require any coding, so I don't have any coding skills. The software is very simple and allows you to make games pretty quickly. Like I said, I had a demo in 10 minutes. Yeah. And the book Thinker Toys by Michael Michalko, it's a $12 book. Yeah. And I used 2 of those techniques to do a 180 with my life. Yeah. And it wasn't the book; it was the effort that I put into from what I learned from that book into improving my thinking. And again, people, they always ask me about how I became successful with this, or they want a quick, like you're saying, they want something quick. Yeah. And I always tell them the same thing: you have to improve your thinking, and you have to do that on a daily basis to get better and better results until one day you get that result that you've been heading towards. Maybe you didn't know exactly what it was, but when it revealed itself to you, it revealed itself in the right time because you've been improving your thinking. But if you don't work on your thinking every day, then you're going to get the same results or near the same results as you've always gotten. Sure. I mean, so even to this day, I'm always working on improving my thought process, because I feel like I don't understand much about anything, and I want to learn more and more. So that's the other thing. I think with success, you have to make sure that you don't let that success puff you up. You can't get a huge ego. You can't think like you're a know-it-all or any of those things. You always got to think, I don't know more than what I do know, so I need to keep studying and be a constant student in life, in everything. You should always work on that. Otherwise, your thinking is dead. You aren't a thinker. If you think you already have the information, then you're not listening also, and you're not going to listen to those moments in life when something reveals itself to you.
So as I say, stay humble, and your mind is where you live, where your brain lives, where your thinking process lives. And if you renovate your thinking process and your mind, well, you're going to have better results. It's kind of,
right.
Short version of what you're saying.
It's work. It's a lot of work, but that's it in a nutshell.
That's it. Now, like everyone else, I found the game to be insanely addictive, a whole stack of fun, with a thumpingly cool dance track that I Shazammed just out of curiosity, only to find out that you can even buy it on iTunes.
So they put it out finally.
It was great, yes. So to me, the game is easier than Flappy Birds, but still devilishly difficult. And it's so addictive that you obviously want to go back for one more go, time and time again. So, I mean, what are your comments on the experience that we've all been having so far playing your amazing game? And what's your best score in the game thus far?
Well, my best score is 120.
Okay.
But people have surpassed that by hundreds of points. Yep. And yeah, I just really worked on. I've also studied game design since the beginning, and the book I've studied mostly is called The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell, and he's a Disney game designer. Wow. Even to this day, he still designs games. And the book is basically filled with a lot of design concepts that you can apply to games specifically. And the idea of it being challenging, that comes from a concept called the flow state. And what the flow state means is when someone is in the flow in your game, that means they're constantly being challenged at an increasing rate.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not being challenged enough as a game player, I will be bored and I will put the game down. I won't play it again.
Yeah.
If I feel the game is too hard to where I am over challenged and I don't feel I can become more skilled in the game and have a chance, I'll put the game down as well.
Sure.
So there's this balance in between those two areas of boredom and frustration that is the flow state. And that's when the game player can't put the game down because they're just, they feel, whether they know how to articulate it or not, they're feeling really challenged by the game at an increasing rate. And so that was something that I really focused in on for this game. Ramping up the difficulty as time goes by. And I tweaked that a lot for many months until I thought I had the balance. And when I had maybe like 40 people test the game, and just about every single one of the people had that same feeling that people have today, where they just feel really challenged and can't put the game down or get really frustrated. And another element that I put in there was the element of surprise, and that's another reason why I had the color changing ball. That's one of the reasons why I thought of the color changing ball, because I thought, well, if I constantly make people surprised, how could I do that? Well, what if the character was constantly changing? And that's, kind of when I probably put 2 and 2 together with the Gmail loading icon and all these other ideas that I had on a piece of paper in front of me. So, very simple ideas, again, but, if you don't study game design and you're a game developer, you're missing out on a lot of ways to make a great game.
Yeah, you're missing out on learning from the experiences of others who've been successful.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I've got stacks of more questions to go. It's really fascinating to talk to you, David. Have you thought of your next big blockbuster hit or some awesome variation on Color Switch so you could have a Color Switch 2? Or is it all top secret?
Yes. I've already developed an idea for Color Switch, the sequel.
Yeah.
We probably aren't going to come out with it for quite a while because Color Switch is still at the top of the charts.
Yeah.
And if it came out with a sequel now, it would basically hurt the original.
Yeah.
So
timing is
doing
everything.
so well that what's that?
Timing is everything.
Yeah. So we're in the game and in life.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're gonna, well done. You placed it and I picked it up. I got that.
Very good.
We rehearsed as people.
That's
no, we
didn't. We didn't.
And we're gonna come out with a sequel when the time's right. And then I have other Color Switch type ideas that I'm gonna be working on. Sure. And then I'll be working on other non-Color Switch ideas pretty soon. But I have a lot of projects that are gonna keep me busy for the next couple of years for sure. And just be on the lookout. They'll be coming out.
Yeah. Now, I've read a bit of your bio. I understand the game's success has changed your life for the better. I mean, obviously, if it's a top game and you're getting ready to travel the world to tell your story, can you share a few of your experiences thus far post-game success with us?
Yeah, well, basically, last year I was 5 months late on like 6 credit cards. I was going to get my car repoed and all this stuff. And then the game basically did a 180 turn from the direction I was going in life, and I got rid of all that debt and started traveling. And so one of the things that happened was I went and met a friend of mine in Germany. His name is Florian. He's the creator of Ball Jump. That was also a hit game on the App Store. And I met up with him, and he showed me around Germany. I went to Switzerland for 2 days. I'm currently traveling the U.S. I'm currently in New Mexico. I did live in California, but I moved out, so I'm a nomad now. I don't live anywhere. I'm a wanderer, just wandering around for the next couple of years. And, I'm going all over the U.S. this year. I've gone to, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, and now New Mexico. And I wouldn't be able to do this had I not stuck with working on figuring out how do I make this app business work, and being willing to make all those mistakes till I got to the Color Switch idea. Because maybe I could have gone and made 35 games and given up, and I wouldn't have known that 5 more games and I would have been there. And but you can't know that until it happens. Yeah. So that's why I say you gotta be stubborn and not give up until you get to where your destination is.
And are you coming to Australia?
Yeah, I'm gonna in August. I'll be going to Iceland. I might stay there for a month, and then I'm going to go to Australia right after. I might stay there for a month, and then I'm going to come back to the U.S. And then I think January I'm going to go out to Europe, and I'm probably going to stay out there the entire year. traveling around Europe, but in working on games at the same time, because the nature of this business is you can work and travel if you want. And so everywhere I go, I'll just have my laptop, my phone, and my iPad, and working with my team of people I have now, and just enjoying traveling. And I've never traveled before except for the military. I was in Iraq back in 2005, but I never was able to just travel. And so I'm playing catch up now, I feel. Sure. Going everywhere.
And of course, traveling expands the mind in ways that, is invaluable.
Right.
And I mean, you'll look at Iceland, and you'll see all this ice out there, and you'll think, wow, there's some game I can do with all this sheet of white or something. I mean,
Exactly. I mean, just going out into the world will inspire ideas for games. In my case, it would be games, and then for anyone else, it could be a number of things. But yeah, just going out and experiencing life, that's another great way to get perspective on how people live, seeing the customs and traditions in different areas. And I'm always fascinated to go travel somewhere new and experience how people live there, because it's so far away from how I live. But I'm always there I try to listen and learn when I am around that. So, when I go to Iceland and Australia, for example, I'll probably do the Airbnb service to where you go stay at someone's house. Yeah. You could stay at a family's house or this or that. And just kind of like, I don't want to be a tourist, do touristy things. I want to kind of get into the culture and just see how people live, and not just go to the main things that people go to, but get a little deeper and just talk to people and meet people.
Sure.
And then, another great thing for traveling is I've been studying close-up magic since my military days. So that's another great thing that I can bring and engage people with, and have some fun. And it's a great way to kind of break the ice, when I'm traveling around. So should be interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to have to check out Japan and Southeast Asia.
Yes.
There's a lot of...
Oh, yeah. That's probably going to be the next year after Europe. I might just go all over Asia for the following year.
Incredible, yeah. Now, this is just a silly question, but obviously since the game, it's famous now that you're colorblind, so clearly you've obviously chosen colors that you can see.
Yeah, I can see about 15% of colors. Right. So the average person sees about 1 million colors. I see about 100 to 150,000. And the colors in my game, I forget what they are all the time. But when I was in my computer, I used the color wheel, which on the color wheel, it tells you exactly what color you're picking. So I would pick the 4 colors, and I knew exactly what they were in the moment. But then when I forgot what I had picked and I'm playing the game, I can see all the 4 colors, but I forget what their names are. Right, I'm like, is that orange or yellow or purple or blue? I forget.
I mean, it doesn't matter in the moment, I guess.
Yeah, but they're so contrasting in... if I made the game with like 4 shades of yellow, mm-hmm. I would be lost. I would not be able to play the game, whereas someone else would. But because I picked colors that were so different from each other, I can see the difference, even though I may not know what the colors are.
Sure. Yeah. Now, another silly question. I read, that couples are breaking up over playing the game too much, and there's been public fights, and people at work are, they're playing away. And I'm just wondering, have you reached out to any of these people to tell them thanks for loving and playing the game, but please chill out?
Well, I've actually met a couple people in person who, when they realized that I was the creator of the game, because I'm always wearing my Color Switch shirt. I'm a shameless self-promoter, getting the word out. Mm-hmm. And these high school girls ran up to a table I was at when I was eating at a restaurant, and they asked if I was the creator of the game. And I said yes. And one girl looked at me. She said, "Your game has ruined my life." And I said, what can you say? I just said, "You're welcome." And then we all laughed. Yeah. But I really, if I meet people, it's usually not too serious. Yeah. I never take it too serious. I find it amusing, but I have yet to meet someone who's really angry over it. But and people love drama, and in life, who wants to go see a movie where everything works out easily?
That's right.
You want to. We go to see these people struggle through these obstacles and achieve their goal. And, it's kind of metaphor for what we want to do in our own lives. And that's, I think, one of the deeper reasons why we go and see films and enjoy them. But games are the same thing. A game without conflict, then, no one's going to want to play it. And so if there is conflict, we might have some phones smashed. It's just part of the deal.
Sure, yeah. I was just thinking as you were saying that Bruce Willis always wins in the end, but there's 2.5 hours of struggle to get there.
Yep. Any of these films, it's and again, it just taps into our subconscious because we really connect with these characters that are made, to be believable, and seeing them go through those obstacles really is just, it's kind of like you project yourself onto the screen a lot of the time and get inspired by what you're seeing. And I think film, at its best can inspire us to achieve our own goals in life.
So any plans for a color switch movie like the Angry Birds movie?
I'd be up for it. I don't know what it would be yet, but we can easily see color switch is just circles and just basic shapes right now. But again, if we use conceptual blending and we blend color switch with cute animals or whatever, it could be whatever we want it to be. It doesn't have to just be shapes. That's just the initial idea, but we can expand upon that in any way we want. So we could easily make a color switch movie.
I mean, let's think about it. One of your favorite movies growing up was Tron, and that was a bunch of lights and shapes and lines and colors and all the rest. So in a way, they've almost already made it.
Yeah, kind of. On Tron, I would love to make my version of Tron.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever get that opportunity from Disney, but to this day, that movie inspires me. Even though watching it as an adult, it's a little cheesy. The acting's not the best, or the script's not the best, but the visuals I still love to this day. And the soundtrack, it takes me back to when I was watching it when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And there's certain movies like that I get inspired by all the time by watching them or listening to the music. And oftentimes I listen to the Tron soundtrack or other soundtracks from when I was a kid when I'm brainstorming ideas, because it kind of gets my brain,
creative juices
my
flowing.
whole being in a certain mode.
Yeah. And so which platforms have you ported the game to, and which ones will you port it to in the future? I mean, major games consoles, smart TVs, do you have a version for PC or Mac yet? And what about a virtual reality version for the Samsung Gear VR or Oculus Rift or HTC Vive?
Well, I think so far we've been mainly focused on Apple and Google Play, but we'll probably do Amazon as well. I actually haven't talked with my guys on. We have it online as well. We have I can't remember the name of the company that has the online version for us, but those are the main ones. I'm definitely thinking we'll be open to more exposure by putting on different platforms, but we just haven't gone over specifics on that. As far as virtual reality, it'd be cool to just think of a new color switch title that is all built for that environment from the ground up. So I've actually thought about that a couple times. And I remember I was giving a talk at this school, and all the kids went crazy when I said, "Well," they said, "Ask what's the same question." They said, "What are you going to do? Any other variations of it?" And I said, "Well, we might do virtual reality might be cool." And all the kids, they started cheering because they thought that was the greatest idea. So sounds like there's a market for that one for sure. But I'm open to any of these platforms. We just haven't gone over specifics and discussions yet.
Sure. I'm an iPhone fan first and foremost, but I have a Galaxy S7 and I have the VR headset. And if you haven't got one, you should get it. They're not expensive to buy. Okay. I mean, the phone's expensive to buy, but the headset's cheap. And I'm sure that'll open your mind up in all kinds of
that's a good
ways.
idea. I probably will get one because it's a business expense for one thing. But if I'd like to get into VR, I definitely need to start testing it out and seeing what it's all about.
There's a fabulous game called Ashok Wars 2, ASHOK, and basically you've got to sit onto a spinning office chair. And when you put the headset on, you're in a spaceship, and you're like a Luke Skywalker type character, firing at all of these alien ships, and you're spinning around in your chair, and what you're seeing is the inside of your cockpit and the space out in front of you. So it is, it's like The Last Starfighter or any of those things brought to life. And if I was you,
just wrote that down and check it out.
Go out and go and buy this stuff today because you'll freak out. It's so good. And
it's called
ASHOK, Ashok Wars 2. They had Ashok Wars 1, which I have on an earlier Samsung device, and then they stopped selling it. They have the sequel. So it's just like, you don't have to, like the problem with the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift headset, it's not really a problem, but you have to have a really powerful PC, and then you have all these cables connecting you to the PC. So if you're spinning around in a chair, there's only so many times you can spin around before you have to spin back the other way. But when you have the headset on your face, it's the screen is the phone. The phone goes into the front of the headset.
And what's that system called again?
The Samsung Gear, Gear VR, Samsung Gear VR. and they've had it now for a couple of years, and so there's quite a lot of games out there, and you can watch Netflix on it. I mean, it's really amazing, and you know, I mean, everyone's waiting for when Apple's going to launch their VR, and of course Microsoft has its HoloLens, which is augmented reality. And the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality is that virtual reality is closed off. You can't see beyond what you're seeing. Augmented reality puts figures and information in front of you when you're looking at real life. So if I'm looking at you, next to your head will pop up the name of your kids, your wife, your birthday, all that sort of information I'm supposed to remember but don't for whatever reason. Right. And then and it might put a Skype window. We could be having this conversation, and as I'm walking down, the office, there's your face. We're having a conversation. So I mean, you got to get yourself a HoloLens too. They're pretty incredible, expensive but incredible. So
HoloLens.
Yeah, HoloLens. HoloLens. Unfortunately, the videos that Microsoft shows, they show this incredible vista in front of you. The reality is more like an A3 sheet of paper in front of your face. But look, of this augmented reality. But clearly, the future is that they're envisioning is pretty incredible, and will be something that our kids and grandkids will take for granted.
Definitely.
Look, we're nearly at the end here. We've been going for 40 minutes, and this is going to be an epic video for people to watch, especially the young people out there who want to really learn from you. I'm really excited for them to be able to watch this. But where do you think gaming will evolve to in 10 years' time? Holographic gaming, augmented virtual reality? Where do you think you'll be in 10 years? Still in the gaming business or doing something else? Bit of crystal ball game.
As far as where I'll be, I know after a couple years in the game industry, I'm going to go into the film industry because I was actually interested in filmmaking before I got into games. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of films I would like to make, and so I'll probably open my own studio in a couple years. And then after that, I don't know. But I don't like to do something too long before I focus on something new, because I always want to add more perspectives and more knowledge to my thinking, so I can get better and better results. And so I'm not sure where I'll be in 10 years, but I do know that I will have probably transitioned from games by then, and I'll be doing other things. And as far as where the game industry is going, I feel like it's going to – I think there's always going to be different markets for, retro games. And, at some point smartphone games will be the retro games that people like those platforms still. But I think there's always a market for that. But as far as where the main stuff is going, it seems like it's going more augmented reality, virtual reality. It's going to turn into like the Matrix, where especially augmented reality. I think it's going to get to a point you don't know what is CGI and what's real when you have whatever system engaged into what you're looking at. You're in the real world, but maybe the refrigerator looks 100% real, and then when you go to touch it, your hand goes through it. I'm sure it's going to be seamless, and that's going to be really interesting, because it could be scary too. Because think about playing a horror game, and you're in a haunted house, or like a house where there's all these crazy monsters, but you're there now, and they seem like, I bet you there'll be some issues with people having medical problems because of the realism. Is so
incredible.
It's just you can't get. It's too realistic almost. Yeah. So, but I feel like augmented reality is definitely something that's going to be a huge evolution in games, and then and virtual reality as well. And then who knows? There's probably other way more advanced technology and systems that you can hook yourself into that give you. Who's to say you not only could you feel like you're flying like Superman, but you're in some apparatus that gives you all the sensations of flying, and there's probably more and more advanced technologies that are going to be coming out way beyond what the virtual reality and augmented reality are going to be doing.
Sure,
I think in general games are going to get very more realistic and engaging, and it's not going to be I'm staring at something anymore, I'm holding something anymore. It's going to be I'm there, and that can be. I think that could be very exciting. Think about playing Mario Kart, and I feel like I'm in the go-kart, and I'm in the game. That seems like a lot of fun, and that's probably only the tip of the iceberg. So I think just being in the game and not looking out at the game is the main way things seem to be going for the future.
Sure. There's a company called Magic Leap, which is backed by Google, and they have also an augmented reality headset, and they just announced a deal just only a few days ago where you can bring C-3PO and R2-D2 into your home. I don't think it's released to the public yet.
Wow.
But yeah. So Magic Leap have a look at that one too. That's another really interesting, exciting.
They're full of good tips.
Yeah, good headset that is the future, and I'm sure
Wow.
you'll have one of those too. So look, you've given us so much. This second last question now. You've given us so much awesome advice. But I always like to ask a question inspired by when Ashton Kutcher came to town and gave us a talk at a Lenovo event, and he advised that a great question to ask people is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today?
The best piece of advice,
or something.
I would say it came from my mom, because when I was a kid, she even if I didn't know what I wanted to do or whatever I would say, she would say, I'll be happy with whatever you want to do, as opposed to, I think a lot of parents want their kids to do something specific, and then maybe that goes against what the child feels inside of them. They know that they don't want to do that, but they don't know why, but they haven't discovered it yet. And if you don't have that ability and that chance to discover that because of other influences in your life, then that can derail you from where you could have gone. And I think my mom was definitely the main inspiration for me going out and trying things in the world. But she always said, I'm happy with whatever you decide you want to do. And so that gave me the confidence, I think, as a kid, to figure out what that was. And the initial step was get out of my comfort zone and go in the military. Yeah. Not that's only my story.
Sure.
People shouldn't go in the military. Especially if you don't feel like that's something for you. But for me, that was what kickstarted everything. So really, it was probably that. And then, when I was a kid, my mom was always reading to me. And as young as I can remember, even before I started going to school, she'd be reading and teaching me, how to read and whatnot. So I always had this desire to learn too. But that's probably the main thing that I always remember from when I was a kid. And then my mom, she always said things like she knew I was going to do something important or special when I grew up, and so I always had that in my mind too. And when you say these things to kids, they have a big impact. A lot of things go back to your childhood, and so it's whenever I have children come up to me who are excited about the game and they see my shirt or the car that I have that has Color Switch emblems on it, I always remember how I felt when I was a kid. Sure. When I got inspired, and I always am conscious of making sure that I'm doing or saying something positive. And I think one girl the other day said, she said, "Oh, I want to do this when I grow up." And I said, "Hey, you know what? If you keep doing it and you just keep working on it, you're going to make it happen. Just don't give up." I told her the same thing I tell an adult. Yeah. If you don't give up, you're going to get there. Just keep on working on it. So, but that's probably the most important thing that someone said to me that I remember that far back. That's all definitely something that's always been in the back of my head ever since I was a kid.
Sure. So the final question is, do you have any final messages for iTWire viewers and readers, and for your current and future Color Switch players?
Just go out and create your own Color Switch, or your own whatever that is you want to do. Whether it's, some people want to become a skilled surgeon and give that service to people, or some people want to be a policeman, or whatever it is. Just never give up on what it is you want to do, and don't settle. Too many people settle for something other than what they want. And then I think it was Henry David Thoreau who said, most men lead lives in quiet desperation. There's so many people who are desperate to get out of their situation. But remember, the situation is your own creation. And that, that's the power of the mind. Each one of us, I believe I'm a Christian, and I believe we're made in the image of God. And as part of that, we have the ability to create. And you have the ability to create seamlessly something from your mind to the physical reality. So it's something as simple. If I want to pick up a cup, I can instantly pick up a cup if it's right there, or I can go to the cupboard and get it. Yeah. And that's a seamless transition between an idea and physical reality, and that's creation. Yeah. So you have the ability to create on a small level like that, and you have the ability to create on a large level. So before Color Switch, I had no career that anyone would take in a legitimate way. But I went from no career, because I always had part-time jobs, to I am the CEO of my company, and I have a product that's my product, and so I do that full-time now. And that, again, was a creation that I made. And every single person has the ability to create the life they want. And if your life isn't there yet, you still created that life. Now work on creating something other than that if you're not happy with it. So, that's what I would say to everyone. I have no special abilities. I don't have a superpower. I'm not a superhero. Because I continually work on my thinking, I started to realize these things that, I do have the ability to create anything I want for my life. And it may not happen today or tomorrow, but it will happen if I keep thinking on it and I keep doing it. So everyone should know that they have the same creative abilities as anyone else. But if someone is more creative than you currently are, it's because they've been working on their thought process. So just work on your thought process. Know that you can create, and you have that ability to create something that's just in your mind into the physical reality, and just never stop being a student. Never settle, and whatever the goal is you have, you're going to get there with a lot of failure in the way. But once you get past that, you're going to look back. I look back sometimes and I still can't believe that I finally got to the one goal I have. There's going to be many more goals after this, but I think, man, how did I get here? And I look back on it, almost seems like a dream. But if I quit at 35 games, 38 games, one game, I never would have known that this would happen. And so it's the same for anyone else. Everyone has the same opportunity to have similar results, or results that make sense for their life to happen.
Well, David Reichelt, thank you very much for your service. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm and all of your great advice and ideas. Thank you very much for your game and the games to come. And I really look forward to hopefully meeting you when you come to Australia.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. And it was a pleasure being on your show. I'll let you know, and I should be there later this year, and we'll definitely have to meet up.
Great. Thank you very much, David, and talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.